Welcome to Eternal Night. Tonight we enter the twisted mind of a man who turned a hotel into a trap, and every guest into his next secret. Have you ever heard of Dr. H. Holmes? To the world, he was a charming man with intelligent eyes and a smile that could disarm anyone. But behind that polite facade was one of the most twisted minds in American history. His real name was Herman Webster Mudgett, and the story of what he built in the heart of Chicago during the 19th century is so disturbing, it still sends chills down the spine. Born in New Hampshire in 1861, Holmes was a bright child, but his intelligence was paired with a dark curiosity. From a young age, he was fascinated by anatomy. Rumors swirled that he would capture and dissect small animals, not out of cruelty, but from a cold, detached need to understand how life worked, and more importantly, how it could be ended. This fascination led him to study medicine at the University of Michigan. But while his classmates were learning how to save lives, Holmes was learning how to profit from death. He started small, stealing cadavers from the university's labs to use in elaborate insurance fraud schemes. It was his first foray into a world of deception, and he discovered he had a natural talent for it. In 1886, he arrived in Chicago, a city buzzing with energy and ambition. Here, he shed his old identity and became H. Holmes, a sophisticated doctor and businessman. He quickly purchased a drugstore, and with his charm and apparent success, he won the trust of the community. But Holmes's ambition wasn't just to run a pharmacy. He was dreaming of something much larger and much more sinister. Across the street from his business, he began construction on a massive 3-story building. To the public, it was going to be a hotel, perfectly timed for the upcoming 1893 World's Fair. But this was no ordinary hotel. Holmes acted as his own architect and general contractor, hiring and firing construction crews constantly. This wasn't because he was a difficult boss. It was a calculated strategy. By changing workers frequently, he ensured that no single person would ever understand the building's true, terrifying layout. What he created was a labyrinth of horror. People would later call it the Murder Castle. The upper floors were a maze of over 100 rooms. Many were windowless and soundproofed. There were staircases that led to nowhere, hallways that ended in brick walls, and doors that could only be locked from the outside. Hidden in the walls were gas lines that Holmes could control from his office, allowing him to asphyxiate his guests without ever entering their rooms. The castle was also fitted with secret passages and trapdoors, allowing him to move unseen throughout the building. Chutes were installed that led directly from the guest rooms down to the basement. And the basement was a place of nightmares. It was Holmes's personal laboratory and disposal site. It contained a dissecting table, a crematorium, and pits of acid. Here he could process the bodies of his victims, stripping them of their flesh, selling their skeletons to medical schools, and destroying any remaining evidence. The World's Fair of 1893 brought millions of visitors to Chicago, and Holmes's hotel was open for business. Countless people, many of them young women who had traveled to the city for work, checked into the hotel. Many of them were never seen again. Holmes wasn't just a brute, he was a master manipulator. He would charm women, promising them marriage or employment. He convinced many to take out life insurance policies, naming him as the beneficiary. Once he had their money and their trust, they would simply vanish. Beyond the castle, Holmes was a prolific con artist. His schemes were wide-ranging and complex, involving fake businesses, fraudulent loans, and countless scams that spanned across the country. But his intricate web of lies began to unravel when he involved an associate named Benjamin Pitezel in an insurance fraud scheme. The plan was for Pitezel to fake his own death so they could split the $10,000 payout. But Holmes decided it would be easier to just take Pitezel's life for real. Not content with that, he then went on to take the lives of 3 of Pitezel's 5 children, all to cover his tracks and eliminate any witnesses. It was this final, horrific act that put investigators on his trail. In 1894, Holmes was finally arrested in Boston, initially for a separate case of fraud. But as detectives began to look into his past, they started connecting him to a string of disappearances centered around his Chicago property. When police entered the Murder Castle for the first time, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. They discovered the secret rooms, the gas pipes, the chutes, and the terrifying basement. They found piles of bone fragments, personal belongings of the missing, and evidence of countless lives extinguished within those walls. During his trial, Holmes was calm, articulate, and disturbingly confident. He acted as his own lawyer, spinning a web of confessions, denials, and constantly changing stories. The newspapers, sensationalizing the gruesome details, dubbed him the Devil in the White City. He seemed to revel in the attention, reportedly telling one journalist that he was born with the devil inside him. On May 7, 1896, H. Holmes was executed by hanging. True to his character, he showed no remorse, only a clinical curiosity about the process of his own death. He confessed to 27 murders, but given the scale of his operation and the evidence found, authorities and historians believe the true number could be as high as 200. Shortly after his execution, the murder castle mysteriously burned to the ground. Some say it was an accident, others believe it was arson, an attempt to erase the evil that soaked its foundations. But the fire couldn't erase the story. The legend of H. Holmes only grew, becoming a dark and permanent fixture in American folklore. His tale is more than just a true crime story. It is a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always lurk in the shadows with a monstrous face. Sometimes it wears a tailored suit, offers a polite smile, and builds its own castle right in plain sight. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as it is terrifying, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the darkest corners of history. Stay curious and stay safe. Eternal night never ends, and neither do the mysteries. Every shadow hides a story, and the deeper you look, the darker its secrets become.